Beam me aboard.
Energize.
Energizing.
Kirk to transporter room. Report.
You're listening to Transporter Room 3 with your hosts, Phil Perello and Scott Calora. Welcome back, listeners, to Transporter Room 3. I am co-host Phil Perello. With me is co-host Scott Calora.
What's up?
Oh, my nerd boner.
And why is that?
Well, Scott, I'll tell you. You see, when a podcast meets something it likes, it gets excited. No, Scott Calora locked down a special treat for me and for you, listeners. Commander Riker, Jonathan Frakes, we had a little interview with him just a bit ago, and we're going to run that for you exclusively here on Transporter Room 3, so hold on to your butts.
Yeah.
It's, I don't think any of our listeners are a stranger to these parts and how much Riker made an impression on me as a kid. I've talked about Riker Swagger.
Yeah, he Rikered your world when you
He
were a kid,
Rikered my world. Very well done, Scott. I can remember walking down the hallways in elementary school. That's how far back I can go, doing the Riker walk. You know, that lean and head thing that he does. Like, he looks like he's either going to punch you or run you over. You can't tell. Also, the Riker maneuver, you know, like the tucking the shirt, which is the Picard maneuver. Do that. And I would always, when I got upset at someone, I would always crack out the Future Imperfect line of "shut up."
Right.
Say "shut up" as in close your mouth and stop talking.
And you told me that you actually grew a beard in 10th grade inspired by Riker.
Yeah, a little bit. Not gonna lie. I was doing a play, Romeo and Juliet, and just thought, you know what? F it. Let's rock some beard. Let's get some face pubes walking up here. And yes, I patterned it after Riker's beard. I would always be like, how come my beard won't grow in like Riker's? I mean, it grew in thick, but I mean, now I got full Riker beard. I mean, at 32 years old. I was just 16 years too early on the beard front.
So it's a big day for us as Star Trek fans, anyway. Because we spoke to Jonathan Frakes a little while ago, and we also had the debut of, I believe, is it the final domestic trailer?
Domestic trailer for Into Darkness.
Yeah, which is pretty exciting.
It looks kind of cool. It's nice to see the focus back on Kirk and not the villain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're actually acknowledging that they're in outer space a little bit as well.
Yeah. You know, it gave away a little bit more, but really only gave away a little bit more around the edges of scenes we've already seen.
Yeah.
Minus a few cool little shots here and there. But it has my money. At least twice.
I think that so the suspicion that there are two Enterprises or two Starfleet vessels anyway, it obviously is confirmed here, right?
In the trailer.
Yeah, so they're facing off against one another, and
we're assuming, listeners, that you've watched the trailer like a normal human being before listening to our podcast. If you haven't, fix it.
Like a normal Star Trek human being, Star Trek fan.
If you haven't watched it yet, shut it down. Down. Watch that, then come back.
Is that an oxymoron? A normal Star Trek fan human being?
It's something. It is a unique classification, that's for sure.
So that Enterprise is probably the other Enterprise, or the other Starfleet vessel is probably Robert April's Enterprise, right?
Maybe.
Who's in the comic? I guess the prequel comic that they did.
Right.
I don't know. It seems like that might be what it is. It reminds me, in the silhouette of that ship reminds me a little bit of the Enterprise D, actually. Do you see it at all?
Yeah, I got an Enterprise C vibe a bit.
Enterprise C even more, yeah. Yeah,
but
definitely.
it's big, and it's like a stealth black, which is kind of cool. And
bad guys are always black, right?
Right, and I like
they wear black.
I like we're going back to, the second movie, two starships duking it out. Like, we haven't seen that since Wrath of Khan. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, is that have we not seen that since Wrath of Khan?
We haven't really seen like Enterprise versus another starship, you know?
Another starship.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm excited. And that's the ship. I mean, if you watch closely enough, that's the Cumberbatch's big black ship, which is a new name of a band. Uh, that's the ship that crashes into Alcatraz and into the ocean.
That
So
it's Cumberbatch's film,
yeah.
Cumberbatch's ship.
So I
Okay.
don't know what happens to Enterprise when it's all destroyed and falling into Earth's orbit like that, but that'll be interesting. I have a feeling that a lot of major set pieces have been kept wisely under wraps, and we're gonna be blown away when we see it on the big screen. I don't it Enterprise falling out of the sky wherever that thing hits, that's gonna be awesome. That's gonna be a great thing to see on the big screen.
Yeah. So it's it's coming soon. We're
Phrasing.
finally gonna we'll get so this is what will happen. We'll see the movie finally, right? We'll talk about it for a few weeks, and then start waiting for the next one.
Yeah,
Start waiting.
distance, isn't it?
You can actually like chart out your entire life, the path your life is
Right.
going to take. As long as you don't wear a scant while you're waiting. Speaking of scants,
Yes.
now that segue isn't too bad, right?
No, it was decent.
Okay. Speaking of scants, we did talk to Will Riker himself, captain of the Titan, former XO of the Enterprise. Number one, Jonathan Frakes. So you want to just beam Jonathan in and do it?
If we have to, Scott, let's do it.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, thanks for taking the time to talk to us today, Jonathan.
Where are you guys, Scott and Phil?
I'm in Los Angeles and Scott's in New York.
Yeah, so we're doing this all through the magic of technology.
How
You're in,
appropriate for Star Trek.
isn't it?
That's true.
Are you in LA right now?
I just got back from New York, yes, last night.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice. Well, thanks again for sitting down and chatting with us. I'm sure you guys have been like making the rounds on this show for quite some time now, and we really appreciate you talking about the new Blu-ray coming out.
Of course.
So the best of both worlds obviously was such a pivotal episode for Riker. What was it like for you when you got that script?
Well, it was Mike Pillar's script, and he always wrote Riker brilliantly. And he also had a great sense of irony. So I was thrilled, naturally, and it was introducing of the Borg, which became our greatest nemesis for the history of the show. That was kind of exciting because it let Mike Westmore go crazy with the makeup. It was a very exciting. It was exciting. We could tell we had a great cliffhanger. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Was there a moment when you were like shooting the episode where you just thought, "Man, we have a great episode here. Like we've really nailed it."
Well, some scripts are better than others, and we could tell that this one was certainly one of those. You don't always hit a home run when you do 26 episodes a season. So we were thrilled that our season finale was going to be one of those.
And when you were like shooting the episode, I mean, obviously, like Best of Both Worlds, it kind of peels back the layers of what it takes to be a hero, especially with Riker. And we at that point we haven't really seen him under the magnifying glass like that. Like, how much input did you have on like the shaping of Riker's character at that point?
Well, I had been complaining that Riker looked weak by turning down these commissions that he had been offered.
Right.
And I think Pillar took that to heart. Conveniently blew up the Melbourne, by the way.
Right.
And it was so I don't know if planting that seed helped, but it certainly was a relief that they addressed that issue for me.
The funny thing about Best of Both Worlds too is I guess when it first aired, I guess I was in college and I kind of enjoyed it and loved it on a certain level, and now here we are, however many years later, and I'm sort of like, I can almost feel Riker. It's like, it's a hell of a thing to call a man seasoned. Like it sort of works on these multiple levels.
Especially now, when my beard is white.
Also, season 3, a big milestone in your career was your first directorial gig doing The Offspring, which is still one of the best episodes of television ever. I was just wondering,
you're very generous.
Oh, well, it's a very damn good episode. So, I was just wondering, like, you've mentioned before in interviews that you had to go through some sort of like director boot camp. Can you talk a little bit about how you approached the episode through that?
Well, I had originally gone to Rick Berman and asked him if he'd consider letting me direct, and he said, "Well, you'd certainly need to go to Paramount University," is what we ended up calling it. So I spent about 300 hours in the editing room with very, very generous editors who also wanted to direct. And then Rick let me into the pre-production and the casting, and then I went through post-production and the scoring. So I was able to learn what was going on off the set, because I was pretty comfortable with having been an actor for so many years and working with all my cohorts. And I'd been around the camera for a while. So it was learning the other aspects, primarily what the editor needed to put an episode together. And by the time Rick finally relinquished an episode, I was over-prepared.
Now, were you prepared for the episode being like what it was? Like, did you have any idea it was going to be like a signature episode of that season?
I had no idea. That was one of the luckiest breaks I've ever had. It was, first of all, the fact that it was a Data episode. I knew it was going to be wonderful because Brent is so delightful, and Data's everybody's favorite character. And then this idea of creating a daughter I thought was a very high concept. And we were lucky enough to cast Hallie Todd, who asked me what she should do, and I said, just watch Brent, and she ended up mimicking him in a way that was delightful. It was, the stars aligned in that episode.
For sure.
I could have been given a sink. I mean, I could have had a sinker, and it just would have been another episode that went by the wayside, but it ended up being a very special episode. It was also Rene Echeverria's spec script, and he went on, as you know, to great things after he joined our staff, and then went on to Castle, and then went on to 24, and he's never stopped working either.
That's great.
Obviously, this is like when things really started to kick in for Next Generation. In terms of season 3, it was when I think it's commonly felt that this is when you guys really started to hit your potential and turn out like amazing episodes. Was that something you guys were cognizant of in the here and now, or
I think no. I think we look back on it and know that that's when our comfort level had kicked in. I think we were comfortable in our skin at that point, and very clear about our characters and our relationships with each other. And season 3 does seem to have been the turning point. I'm not sure we knew as we were doing it. I think we all agree, looking back, that was clearly the season that things clicked.
Was there ever a real possibility that Patrick Stewart would have left the show and that Riker would have wound up taking command?
I'm not sure that was a real possibility, but I think that was what was implied and what they wanted the audience to believe and what they wanted Patrick to believe as they were renegotiating with him.
Interesting. It's because back then, I mean, this is all really pre-internet. I remember you didn't really, as a fan, you didn't really know what was going on until you watched the episode, and then you had to wait all freaking summer to find out. And you really thought, oh, Patrick Stewart might be leaving, and Jonathan Frakes might be the new captain, which was, it boggled the mind in a lot of ways back then.
It was a very successful cliffhanger, as I said, and I think it was as much for us as for the audience.
Do you ever miss playing Riker? I mean, it has been a while now, and we sure miss
every day. If Marina and I always say, if we had our way, we'd still be making the show.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And you really led the charge too, right? Because all these, so many of the other cast members went on to direct because of what you did with The Offspring.
Well, it did become a bit of a pattern, and I must say, quite successfully. If you look at LeVar and Robbie Duncan McNeil and Roxanne Dawson has all gone on and continued to direct wonderfully.
Yeah.
Patrick directed and didn't seem to care for it quite as much.
Oh, interesting. Can you back to the directing? When you first got the gig for the Offspring, I know that you and your castmates are a very tight knit group. Can you talk about what their reaction was when you said, "Hey, I'm going to direct"?
They were their usual hysterical self, out of control. I mean, we were a cast that was very hard to wrangle, sort of like herding cats, and that was heightened when I finally got to call action. They were impossible in the best possible way.
Right.
One of their own was running things now. Why'd they have to play by the rules, I guess, right?
We didn't play by the rules for anybody. So
Jonathan, have you gotten the chance to sit in on any of these public screenings that Fathom is putting on of the old episodes?
I haven't been to the theater. I think I may sneak over next week and come into my local AMC and see what the reaction is. I understand it looks great on the big screen, the episodes.
Yeah, they look good.
Yeah, and it's also a real it's really amazing to see how intact the fandom still is, and the love of the show is still there, even now with the Abrams Star Trek and all the rest of it kind of taking center stage. I mean, these screenings really bring out the crowds, and people have such a good time at them. It's really great.
Well, we found that during our 25th anniversary tour, which we've been doing now in the 26th year. Last year and this year, we've been together a number of times as a complete cast, and the turnouts have been better than they were even when we were in our prime. So it's a credit to Gene and to Rick and to the writers, and it's a show that has a magic all its own.
What do you think Riker's doing now?
I think Riker's running the Titan with what's her name? Maria. Or maybe she's running the Titan and he's working for her.
Well, if he keeps calling her what's her name, that might be the case.
Well, that's any good marriage, right?
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Scott and I were talking about earlier, it's rare for a season of television to produce so many classic episodes, Best of Both Worlds, Part 1 being one of them, but another one was Yesterday's Enterprise. And that was
season 3 as well. Yeah, that's a classic.
Right. And as time travel
I will
stories
tell you
go,
that I still don't understand Yesterday's Enterprise.
I was just going to ask you, like, when you guys, I know that script had like a very troubled development. I was just going to ask, like, when you guys finally got a hard copy in your hands and flipping through it, what was your reaction? What were your castmates' reaction to how dark that show was going to go?
Well, as I said, I'm only half kidding. I still don't quite understand what the rules were in Yesterday's Enterprise. I know that the popularity of the show speaks for itself of the episode, and I was great to have Denise back, but I'm not sure what happened to the space-time continuum.
Right. Was there, we've talked about a lot about, the episodes you guys were able to pull off. Was there one in particular that somehow never saw the light of day that you wish had on Next Gen?
Episodes?
Yeah. Was there a particular idea or episode that was bounced around the writer's room that you heard of that never really gelled, but you wish it did?
No, I wish I had more contact with the writer's room. The way I used to work on Leverage, and we were much more in the loop of what ideas they were kicking around. We were, I think, consciously kept in separate worlds from the writers on Next Gen.
That's interesting because, like, now it seems that, you read a lot about actors having a lot of presence and influence occasionally in the writer's room on shows.
Yeah, certainly not the case on our show.
Okay.
There was an effort to keep you guys separated. Wasn't there more that the case?
Absolutely. It was two different parts of Paramount, and it was definitely two different worlds. And we didn't have the tradition that we have now on television, where the writer of the episode stays on the set during the episode that he's written, which is the case with all the episodic that I direct now. There's a writer right there at your shoulder if there are any questions from the cast or anything that needs changed. That was not the case when we were shooting Next Gen.
Right. Did you visit the set of Into Darkness? We heard a rumor that you did.
Yes, I was lucky enough to go over there when Cumberbatch was actually on the set with and doing a scene with Pine, and it was it looks like it's. I mean, he's a fabulous villain, first of all.
That's
and
great.
I'm a big JJ fan, so I was thrilled to be there. I was there one day, close to the end of their shooting. I think that movie's going to be very exciting. The trailer looks amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. The new one just came out today. It looks pretty great. It has my $15.
So
yeah,
if you,
me too.
what would like your favorite moment be from your Star Trek experience? Which maybe it's hard to break it down to one thing, but like one episode or one experience as a director or anything like that you can name.
It's not really a favorite moment so much as it is the feeling that I had every morning when I got in the car and I drove to work while it was still dark and looked forward to it all 7 seasons, 182 episodes, whatever it was that we did, knowing that each day would be spent with that clever, irreverent, talented, funny group of people who have become lifelong friends. So it was it's never really been matched.
Yeah. And you still get to see these guys sometimes, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I just had lunch with Thorne. LeVar and I see each other all the time, and Brett and I, Patrick, every time he's in town. Marina and my wife are very good friends. We see Gates. I mean, I just did a convention with all of them. We all go, the conventions are great, but the dinners are better.
I remember at Comic-Con a couple of years ago, all of a sudden, we were at some party, and all of a sudden, word started to spread. It was like, Jonathan Frakes and LeVar Burton are having sushi next door to the Hard Rock Cafe. It was like, word started to spread through this party. It was like, should we leave the party and go see it if we can spot them?
Let's go watch them eat raw fish.
They're from the future. They do it differently. But we saw the obviously on the Blu-ray set the reunion interviews that you guys did as well, which was really so much fun for us as fans, because it seems as though there is this camaraderie that you guys have off screen that seems so genuine
it's wonderful. And interestingly, the character or the person who has sort of solidified those reunions is Will, because when Wheaton, who is now in his 40s, I think, looks back and reminds us of how he grew up with us and we with him, he's the litmus test. He's the character, and he's the young man who grew up as part of this family and has relationships with each of us. And he was also he was the trekkiest of the cast, he and Michael. So it's always it always works, but it works best when Wheaton's in the mix.
Yeah. It gets emotional at times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just one last question. Just a segue a bit from the success of season 3 with the Borg. Obviously, was revisited in your first feature film, Star Trek: First Contact. I was just wondering, like, what was your process in terms of like making the Borg scarier again on the big screen as you guys did for the TV screen?
I think the addition of Alice Krige as the Borg Queen heightened the sense that First Contact was not only a Star Trek movie and an action-adventure movie, but in many ways a horror movie.
Right.
And that was something that we embraced, and we shot it in that fashion, and I think it worked on its own merit. One of the reasons that First Contact, I think, was successful was that you didn't have to know anything about Next Gen to enjoy that story.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it still holds up very well.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Pleasure's mine. Of course.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So there you have it. Jonathan Frakes It's pretty cool to talk to Frakes, isn't it?
It's very cool. All I was thinking about the entire time was my Commander Riker action figure, who had like his tunic was a little scratched up for some reason. I don't know why that was a thing.
I still have
scratched him
my.
up. It came that way.
I still. Oh, really? Okay. See,
Yeah.
I still have the. I think we've talked about this before. I still have the. Was it Galoob who did the original run, or who? No, Playmates.
Playmates did the season 3, 4, 5 uniforms and
Okay, I have
some classic figures. But do you have the Galoob
I
ones?
have the original Riker. I guess it was Galoob.
I have the original
from
Riker.
like season 1. I still have it.
I still have my die-cast Enterprise from that run
Yeah.
and the phaser.
Really?
Yeah, the little cricket one.
Nice. So we've had a good run of guests here, right? We had Bakula.
Bakula, we had Robert Hewitt Wolf. We have us.
We have us, of course.
We have Riker.
And we had LeVar Burton too.
That's true. We had LB.
So you guys can probably expect that the well has completely dried up at this point.
We have an interview lined up with Captain Kirk's chair double.
Right.
It's this really nice Foley chair from the local church bingo that they set up for lighting purposes.
No, who knows? You never know who we might get next.
Actually, we got an interview lined up with the manager of a Jacksonville multiplex who's going to talk about all the Star Trek movies that screened there before his time. It's going to be really exciting.
I like that it's a Jacksonville multiplex.
It has to be.
So there's only one order of business left before we leave you.
And that is Red Shirt of the Week.
We take this time to remember those who have laid their lives down for Starfleet. This is the Red Shirt of the Week.
And since we talked to Jonathan Frakes today, we decided to mine the well of his first Star Trek feature film debut, Star Trek First Contact, for today's poor cannon fodder. And that's Lieutenant Hawk.
Who I wasn't even sure at first if he qualifies as a red shirt, because there's something about him. He's part of the bridge crew just for that one movie.
Right.
He
stands out like a sore thumb.
Stands out like a sore thumb, and yet he's cool, and he gets to go on that cool mission with them where the Worf and Picard and Hawk have to walk on the bridge, on the outside hull of the ship,
right,
in their spacesuits. But then he dies on the outside hull of the spaceship. So I think he does count as a red shirt, because we don't know anything about him.
Not really. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Lieutenant Hawk, he did those console work pretty well. Like, he told Data and Picard that, they're hacking propulsion and this and that, and then he goes out and crawls on the dish.
Yeah.
And he tried to mess with Worf. No, he tried to mess with Picard. He punched Picard's face shield.
Oh, right. Okay, right. Yeah.
And
because at that point, Worf was off tying a Borg arm around his punctured spacesuit, I think.
Which is,
right?
What you're supposed to do.
Yeah. And Ensign Hawk, he was a damn handsome Starfleet officer.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Neil McDonough. For fans of Justified and Band of Brothers, that's where it's at.
Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
That's right. He's
in a million things, actually.
Well, he was in Captain America: First Avenger. I don't know if he's in Winter Soldier.
Pardon me. I'm sorry.
You nerd.
Sorry. I'm hoping for those flashbacks in Winter Soldier, back to World War II. But I was a little disappointed when he died. I like the idea that he could potentially be the new helmsman, because that spot was sort of vacant after Wesley left, right? And throughout the run of the show, the rest of the run of the show, and I like the idea of him having them having a regular helmsman back. But you know what? Turns out they only had 2.5 movies left in him at that point anyway. So, Ensign Hawk, though, he lives on. Who mourns for Ensign Hawk?
Mourn. Zing.
All right. On that note, let's wrap it. We can't possibly top Jonathan Frakes, so
I won't even try. Thank you for listening. And Scott, it's a pleasure as always to podcast with you.
Likewise.
And to keep up with the First Contact theme, we'll see you on Gravette Island.